The record, this is the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12 CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys and the prosecutors are present as well. We are outside the presence of the jury. We have a couple of scheduling issues, and one of them my staff is still talking to one of the jurors about. The other one has to do with tomorrow. One of the jurors needs to attend a medical appointment, and so she has requested that we take an early lunch. I think her appointment is at 11:30. And so if we take our lunch break between 11 and 12:30, then she can make her appointment and we still only take an hour and a half. Is there any problem with that on behalf of the people? Everybody's nodding their head no?
You don't have a problem with that, Your Honor?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, or shaking their head no, I should say. And any problem on behalf of the defense?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. All right, that's what we'll plan to do then. And then as soon as I know more about the other scheduling issue, I will let you know. Are the parties ready for the jury at this time?
We're ready, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Spengler?
Your Honor, I do have one brief issue. I expect that the next witness who's going to be called to introduce two 911 calls that the witness made outside the theater. They're very short. I wanted to draw the court's attention to the 911 calls because the defense will be making a 403 and 401 and hearsay objection to the introduction of the 911 calls, and I wanted to draw the court's attention to that before the witness testified.
All right. These are not 911 recordings that I've ruled on?
You've not ruled on this.
All right. Again, it's helpful if you tell me ahead of time. Now we're going to have to delay the jury. I'm finding out about this at the end of the break, so I'm not sure how many times I need to mention to the attorneys that it's always helpful if you tell me in advance that there's an issue coming up that I need to pay attention to. If I had known this, I would have listened to the 911 calls during the break. Ms. Tish McGuire?
Your Honor, I intend to introduce one 911 call only, but I would approach the bench with it if the court would like to listen to it.
All right. What's the exhibit number?
It's 1044.
All right. Why don't you approach? Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler, to me listening to this?
No.
All right. I'm going to have to step down and listen to this now, and then I'll let you know my ruling. You're objecting on relevance grounds, Rule 403, and also on hearsay grounds.
That's correct. I think the witness's testimony will certainly incorporate his injuries and his experience in Theater 8. That's my offer of proof as to why those problems exist with that exhibit.
And what's the people's response to the cumulative objection?
Your Honor, this call is the only 911 call from an injured victim talking about their injuries at the scene of the crime. So I think it's the best evidence the jury's heard of what those victims are actually going through when they realize they've been shot. And the people would also note to the court that we're really only interested in the first 40 seconds of that 911 call. If the court would like to limit the rest of that call, we're fine with that.
All right. What's the response to the hearsay objection?
Your Honor, it's an absolute excited utterance. He's right after the startling event experienced the crime and the shooting and is bleeding everywhere and talks about that in his 911 call.
And this is someone in auditorium number 8?
Correct, Your Honor.
Have I introduced any 911 calls from anyone in auditorium number 8?
You have not, Your Honor.
All right, let me listen to it and then I'll come back and give you my ruling. The court will be in recess. Thank you.
Please rise.
Be seated. Back on the record, this is the people of the state of Colorado versus James Egan Holmes, case number 12 CR 1522. The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys and the prosecutors are present as well. I had an opportunity to review Exhibit P-TR-1044. There are two objections to the exhibit. The first objection is that the defense anticipates that it will be cumulative of the witness's testimony. And I find that to be unpersuasive. That's not rare when you have a 911 call. The witness usually is testifying, and then a foundation is laid for the 911 recording, and then the 911 recording is played if the court admits it into evidence. And so just the fact that the witness is going to be testifying about the event does not render the 911 recording inadmissible under Rule 401 or Rule 403. The recording is probative. It is probative of what allegedly took place on the night of July 19th into the early morning hours of July 20, 2012. And this is the first 911 recording that I will be allowing from someone in auditorium number 8. I have allowed a couple of 911 recordings from folks who were in auditorium number 9. I have not allowed any from someone who was in auditorium number 8. In terms of the hearsay objection, the prosecution's response is that they are seeking to introduce the exhibit under the excited utterance exception to the hearsay rule, which is at Colorado Rules of Evidence, Rule 8032. An excited utterance is a statement relating to a startling event or condition made while the declarant was under the stress of excitement caused by the event or condition. That's verbatim what Rule 8032 states. In order for a statement to be admitted as an excited utterance, the proponent of the statement must show, number one, that the event was sufficiently startling to render normal reflective thought processes of the observer inoperative. Number two, the statement must have been a spontaneous reaction to the event. And number three, there must be direct or circumstantial evidence that allows the jury to infer that the declarant had the opportunity to observe the startling event. That's from People versus Compan, C-O-M-P-A-N, 100 Pacific 3rd, 533, Colorado Court of Appeals case from 2004, affirmed by the Colorado Supreme Court at 121 Pacific 3rd, 876, Colorado 2005. Although there is no bright line time limitation for the exception, because the duration of stress will obviously vary with the intensity of the experience and the emotional endowment of the declarant, the statement must nonetheless evince a spontaneous reaction to a startling event rather than the operation of normal reflective thought processes. That's from People versus Stevenson, 56 Pacific 3rd, 1112, a Colorado Court of Appeals case from 2001. Assuming that the prosecution can lay the proper foundation for an excited utterance exception, this will be admitted. That again is P-TR-1044. Based on what I heard on the recording, this appears to have been a statement that relates to an event that was sufficiently startling to render normal reflective thought processes of the observer inoperative. This would have been a shooting, and so clearly a sufficiently startling event that would render anyone's normal reflective thoughts in suspension or thought processes in suspension. Number two, it sounds like the statement was made almost immediately after the shooting, so the statement was a spontaneous reaction to the event. And number three, direct or circumstantial evidence exists to allow the jury to infer that the declarant had the opportunity to observe the startling event. According to what I heard on the recording and based on the record made by Ms. Tish McGuire, this was someone who was in auditorium 8 during the shooting, and so he was in a position to observe what happened. Now, he may not have actually seen the shooting, but he was there and experienced the part of the shooting, at least in terms of being in Auditorium 8 and some of the bullets that went through the wall that separated Auditorium 8 from Auditorium 9. So if the proper foundation is laid, I will allow this under the exception to the hearsay rule, and that is provided for in Rule 803-2, the excited utterance exception. So, Ms. Tisch-McGuire, if you may approach, please, to retrieve Exhibit P-TR-1044.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has joined us again. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for your patience. Before I forget, there's a scheduling note for tomorrow. We're going to plan on taking an early lunch break. It's still going to be an hour and a half, but instead of the usual 12 to 1:30, we'll take it from 11 to 12:30. And we're doing that to accommodate somebody on the jury who has a medical appointment tomorrow, okay? So tomorrow, plan on taking our lunch break a little bit early, between 11 and 12:30. All right. With that, Ms. Tisch-McGuire, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Zachary Golditch.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
Zachary Warren Golditch, Zackary, Warren Golditch.
Ms. Tisch-McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Golditch.
Good afternoon.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th of 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes.
Did that go into the early morning hours of July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Could you please tell the jury a little bit about what you remember from the day of July 19th, 2012, prior to going to the movie theater that day?
I remember getting tickets to the movie theater, or to the show, weeks in advance, and I remember just being completely excited to go to the movie. I remember going to one of my friend's house, whose mom had purchased the tickets, and ended up going to Walmart, getting Batman masks, candy, to just hype up the show.
Who did you go to the movies with that night?
I went with Martin Varela, Devin Johnson, Kaylin Ingleson, and Jack Ingleson.
Could you tell the jury how old you were on July 19th of 2012?
I believe I was 17.
What time did you get to the movie theater that night?
Approximately, I'd have to say somewhere around 10.
What did you do when you got to the movie theater?
Went to the theater and tried to find the best seats possible.
And what theater number did you go into that night?
Theater number 8.
Not theater number 9, but theater number 8.
Theater number 8.
Where did you find seats in theater number 8?
Right in the front, next to like the first row, the first elevated row, next close to the bars that come across, sitting over the first section seat on the ground.
Now, if this is the movie theater screen, are you closer to the right side or the left side?
To the right side.
What did you do while you were waiting for the movie to begin?
Just found friends, see who all was there. The movie theater was extremely packed, so there were tons of people there that I knew. And, you know, playing around with the Batman mask, the candy, just having a fun time waiting for the movie to start.
Do you recall anything unusual at all happening in Theater 8 prior to the movie beginning that night?
No.
Please tell the jury about what happened to the movie that night.
About the first gun scene in the movie, I think half hour in or so, there's a gun scene, and during this gun scene, I heard some firecracker sounds, several pops go off, and you know it startles my attention, and I look over my right shoulder to see a gentleman who had stood up and yelled some profound language. Obviously, he was in distress. I had seen a gash in his right forearm, and it had been bleeding. There was some smoke in the air, so which led me to believe that I thought that someone was throwing firecrackers down from the audience to scare the people out of the theater because it was a midnight showing, and some people just do that. As soon as that happens, just before I look back at the screen, I hear something hits me, and my ears start ringing extremely, extremely loud. You know, I think that a firecracker hit the back of my head. So I fall over into Jack's lap in pain, and realized, and then I felt some liquid on my hands, and I knew it was blood because of the pain. So then I quickly jumped over the seat in front of me and ran out. And as I'm running out, I just remember looking down at my hands and seeing that the blood is just gushing out of my neck. And it's completely covered in my hand, and then I get to the lobby, and then I see the gentleman who had got hit in the arm was on the ground screaming for help. I look around, there's no one there. And then I continued forward, and I saw another friend of mine, and I asked him, said, how bad is it? You know, how bad is it? Because I had no clue what was going on. As soon as that happens, I look over and hear a lot of commotion to my left, and there were just people stampeding out of the Theater 9. Unaware of what was happening at the moment, besides the injuries to myself, and I needed serious help. I ran across the parking lot, across the street that separates the theater to the mall, and called 911. I talked to 911, and you know, they're aware of what's happening because previous 911 calls had been coming in. And then I continued down that street towards Exposition, I believe, Exposition and Staple, where I see some cars with lights on the top of them, and thinking that they're police officers. I walked down, and two people met me. They were actually construction workers on the road. And they asked me what was happening, and I told them I just needed help. And then they took me in, and they sat me down on the back of their truck, and they put a towel to my neck to stop the bleeding because it was bleeding a lot. And I'm waiting for help, and no one's coming.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Overruled.
You can continue, Mr. Golditch.
Ask your next question, please.
Sure. Thanks, Your Honor. So after you were waiting on the edge of the truck, did eventually you get some medical attention?
Eventually, I was getting lightheaded from all the blood loss, and there was an officer at the corner, and the gentleman helping me asked the officer if he can take me to the hospital immediately.
Were you transported to the hospital?
Yes,
And what hospital were you transported to?
Aurora South.
I want to back up a little bit. When you were talking to the jury about what you recall seeing in the theater, do you recall seeing any shooter ever in Theater 8?
No,
Do you recall seeing any guns in Theater 8?
no,
Do you recall seeing some smoke in Theater 8?
yes.
Okay, could you tell the jury where you saw that smoke?
I saw the smoke when I looked up over my right shoulder. It looked like it had been coming close to the gentleman who had got hit, in between him and the wall. But unaware of what was happening, I couldn't tell what the smoke was coming from.
Your Honor, at this time, with the court's permission, I would ask Mr. Golditch to take the cordless microphone and meet me at the diagram.
Yes.
Thank you. If you could grab that cordless microphone, please, Mr. Golditch. All right, Mr. Golditch, so this is the invisible line that was a wall between Theater 9 and Theater 8. So if you could please describe for the jury approximately where you were seated. Obviously, there would be more seats on the other side of Theater 8.
Where I would be sitting in the theater would be about right here.
Do you recall where your friends were seated?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury where your friends were seated?
It was Devin Johnson was sitting right here. Martin Rell was sitting right here. Jack Ingleson was sitting right here. I was sitting right here. And then Caitlin Ingleson was sitting right there.
Could you show the jury on this diagram where it was that you saw the smoke?
I saw the smoke coming from right around this area.
Could you show the jury where it was that you saw the gentleman who had been shot in the arm?
Roughly around this area as well.
And can you show the jury how it was that you were able to get over your seats and to leave the theater and show them your exit path?
Obviously, you can see in this diagram that there's an extra bar added right here. I was sitting right here and I jumped over the seat. I was sitting on the floor right here and exited out that exit.
All right, thank you very much. You can take your seat. Mr. Golditch, will you please tell the jury about what injuries you sustained?
I received a gunshot wound to the left side of my neck, right below my earlobe, with an exit wound in the back. The entry is right here.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that Mr. Golditch just pointed right beneath his left ear. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, you can continue,
And
Mr. Golditch.
The exit wound is in the back, and the bullet actually split into two pieces right here.
Your Honor, if I may approach Mr. Golditch, what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1128, 4538, 4540, 2034, 2033, and 4541.
Yes.
When I first draw your attention to Exhibit 1128, is that a diagram that you drew to describe where you were seated in Theater Number 8 on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Does it fairly and accurately represent what you remember from that night?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm not asking to publish that diagram, but I'm asking to admit People's Exhibit 1128.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, without objection, P-TR-1128 is admitted.
Right, and then as far as the other exhibits go, are those photographs of the injuries that you sustained on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the injuries you sustained on that night?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 4538, 4540, 2034, 2033, and 4541.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection to those exhibits?
No additional objection to those exhibits?
Are all of those exhibits subject to amended order D98B?
They are.
All right. Can I see those again, please? Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for the reasons stated in
Thank you.
amended order D98B, the exhibits are admitted That's P-TR-4538, 4540, 2034, 2033, 4541, and they all may be published.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I could please have 4538. All right, Mr. Golditch, could you please tell the jury what they're seeing in this photograph?
This photograph is me after I had initially been to the hospital, and they probably, obviously untreated at the moment, but I believe that it gave me some pain medication at this.
Can I please have 4540? All right, Mr. Golditch, is that your left arm?
Yes.
All right, can I please have 2034? And is that your right hand, Mr. Golditch?
Yes.
Can I please have 2033? And could I please have 4541? And could you please describe for the jury what they're seeing in that photograph?
This photograph shows the entry wound that's right below my left ear, and the 2 exit wounds towards the back of my neck.
Thank you very much. Mr. Golditch, you told the jury that you made a call to 911 after you immediately fled the theater. Was that immediately after fleeing the theater that night?
Yes.
I wonder if I may approach Mr. Golditch with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1044.
Yes.
Do you recognize your signature on that disc, Mr. Golditch?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to listen to that CD?
Yes.
Is that CD a fair and accurate representation of the 911 call you made that night on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1044.
Any additional objection?
No.
All right. Without additional objection and based on the record that I made before, P-TR-1044 is admitted. Would counsel please approach?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Tisch-McGuire, are you seeking to publish Exhibit P-TR-1044 at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to publish the first 40 seconds.
All right. You may do so.
Thank you.
And that's what's admitted.
Thank you.
Arapahoe 911, is this reference to shooting in Aurora? Yes, ma'am, and I got shot. I got hit.
You were
I got
hit?
hit. Yes, I got
Okay,
hit.
hold on
in my
a
head.
second. Do not hang
Right
up.
below my-
Sir, do not hang
Yes,
up. I
ma'am.
need to bring Aurora on the phone, okay? Do not hang up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, my gosh. Ow.
Rapid County 911, what is the emergency?
I got shot. I got hit with something, and I'm bleeding a lot.
Sir, hold on a second. Paramedics on the phone, okay? Hold on just a second.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination?
No.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the people call La Samoa Cross to the stand.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names.
Judge, I have 3 middle names. You want all 3 of them?
Yes, please.
La Samoa Matangofie Lucia Catherine Cross. First name Lasamoa. First middle name Matagofie. Lucille Lucille. Catherine Kathryn. Cross. C as in cat. ROSS.
Mr. Broccoli, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, would you tell us what you do for a living?
I'm a student.
Where?
No, I'm just kidding.
Where are you?
I go to currently University of Colorado in Denver. I'm currently a student at the University of Colorado in Denver.
I want to take you back to July the 19th or 20th, 2012. Do you remember that time pretty well?
I do.
Were you a student back then?
I was.
Same place?
At the time I was a student at the Community College of Aurora.
Now, did you end up going to the movie that we're all here to talk about?
Yes.
What took you there?
Being a Batman fan and just being avid moviegoers.
Did you go by yourself?
I went with my boyfriend, AJ Boyk.
Now, AJ sounds like initials. Do you know his name?
Alexander Jonathan Boyk.
How long had you known AJ?
I knew him.
Objection, Your Honor, 401 and 403.
Overruled.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I was a senior in high school. I knew him all through high school pretty much, but it was my senior year, his junior year that we got together.
Did you guys go together, or did you meet there?
We went together.
What did you do earlier in the day before you made the decision to go to the movie?
We had made the decision the week before on July 15th when we were on a camping trip with his cousin Amanda.
Objection, Your Honor, 401, 403.
Sustained.
And ma'am, that's a lot of information. Forgive me, part of
That's
it was
fair.
probably because my question was bad. You made the decision the week earlier, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
What did you do leading up to you going with AJ to the theater that night?
I was at hula practice that evening, hours before we went to the movie together, and he picked me up from there, and we went to the movie.
Now, at some point down the road, and we'll get there, when you're being examined for injuries, you have tape on your hands.
Yes, I had tape on my knuckles because of dancing with fire poi, and we used chains. And fire poi is just a long chain with flammable material at the bottom, and it's twirling. It's a traditional dance in New Zealand, and the chains gave me blisters on my knuckles.
I really want to ask why you would do that, but we'll get to the movie part. What time did you guys... First off, there was a little bit of intrigue with how you even ended up getting the tickets that you had planned to get from the week before. Tell us about that.
We didn't order our tickets until the night of, or the day of. AJ called in, and I ordered them on Fandango. He sent me his credit card information, and there was no confirmation email. So AJ went to Sentry and tried to confront them and ask them why there wasn't a ticket. We went to the kiosk and they weren't there, so he talked to someone at the counter, and he showed them the bank statement on his online banking that the money had been taken out, but he wasn't able to print the ticket, so they gave it to him there after having proved that they had already been purchased.
Man, you guys wanted to go to this movie.
Oh yeah, we were not stopping.
Okay. What time did you end up getting there to try to find seats?
We left my hula practice about 9:30. I got home and changed, and then we went to the movie theater about 10:15.
What was it like? Crowded when you got there?
I think there were probably 4 other couples in there, 8 people total, and then after a while it started to fill in pretty nice.
Had you guys been to this theater to see movies together before?
We had.
Relevance, 403.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, go ahead and
Yeah.
say that again, ma'am.
We had been there before, even that summer. It was our home theater, it was right up the street, so.
Did you have specific seats or area of seats that you guys liked more than others?
We did. We sat in the row that had the rails in front of them, so that way we could put our feet up without disrupting people in front of us.
And were those seats available back on the night of the 19th?
The usual seats weren't, but along the way in that same row there was another set of rails, so we just took that side of the theater seats instead.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm handing you what's been pre-marked here as People's Exhibit 1119. Take a look at that. Do you recognize that to be the interior of the theater that you saw that movie in back on the 19th and 20th of July, 2012?
Yes, it is.
Now, it's unmarked right now. What I'd like to ask you to do is to take a pen. There is one?
Yeah.
Yay. And if you would for us, indicate where you were sitting and where AJ was sitting.
Okay. Okay,
Now, that wasn't the only person you ended up sitting next to who you knew. Is that fair?
that is.
Tell us how that happened.
There were 2 friends of ours that called AJ right before the movie started looking for seats. By that point they called. The movie theater is pretty packed. So they were asking if there were seats next to us. So we rearranged the row so that way we could have them both sit next to us. And they ended up taking 2 seats to the left of AJ.
And do you remember who was in which 2 seats next to AJ?
I do.
Could you put their initials in the seats next to AJ's?
Okay.
Do me a favor, if you would. Would you print your name on there and put today's date somewhere on the border around there?
Okay. Yeah. It's the 26th.
Oh, yep. There's a picture I want to ask you about that you took. Do you remember taking a picture there?
I do.
Was this before or after your friends got there and sat next to you?
This was before.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm handing you what's been marked here as People's Exhibit 4671. Take a look at that and tell me if you recognize that.
I do.
What's that?
It's a picture of AJ and I in the seats we initially sat in before rearranging ourselves to have Jordan and our 2 friends join us. Took about maybe an hour before the show started.
Why the selfie?
Because we like taking pictures of ourselves. Just kidding. It was a big moment. It had been the first time in a while.
Excuse me, interject an objection right now at 401, 403.
Sustained.
That's okay, ma'am. So this particular picture, does this display how the both of you looked before things took a turn in the theater later on?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I'm going to move to admit that exhibit into evidence and publish it to the jury.
Any objection to P-TR-4671?
No objection.
Without objection, it is admitted and it may be published.
Ma'am. That's you and AJ?
That is. That is.
We see the hat there has the Batman symbol. I'm going to ask you about this later, but did you ever recover that hat again when you left the theater?
No. Mm-mm.
Thank you. All right. Your friends show up.
Yes.
You sit there. What are you guys doing while you're waiting for the movie to start?
Before they got there, we were playing games on my phone. When they got there, we were just talking amongst ourselves, waiting for the movie to start. By the time they got there, the movie started probably 10 minutes after that. It was really packed.
What does that mean, really packed?
I didn't see an empty seat in the house once they sat down.
Excited mood?
Oh, big time. Yeah. Summer movie, yeah.
Up to that point, ma'am, had you seen anything that you thought was extremely unusual?
There was a guy sitting to my left in a trench coat, but other than that, everything seemed fine.
So the movie starts. I imagine there's trailers, and there's a certain point, and we've talked about this movie now for a month. What did you notice happen that was different than you expected with this movie?
Well, when the movie started, I just remember watching this one scene. It was extremely dark, and I just remember looking over to AJ and telling him, that's the darkest I've...
I'm going to object to hearsay.
Yeah.
Sustained.
It's okay. We'll talk about something other than that scene.
Yep.
Outside of what took place on the screen, what happened that was unusual in that theater?
To the right of the theater, there was the door flew open, and there was a man standing there. From what it looked like, just looking at him, I could only see a silhouette because of the light from outside that was shining behind him. I could just see a silhouette, and it seemed like he had tactical gear on, cargo pants, a helmet, and a gun strapped to his back.
What made you think he had a gun strapped to his back?
Just the shape of it, the outline of it all.
What happened after you saw this guy come in through that door?
I saw a motion like he was pulling a clip or a key out of something, and then he did an underhand toss in my direction of this canister that was weightless, and it just flew over us and landed a few rows behind us, and I could hear it clinking once it hit the ground.
Do me a favor, and on that exhibit 1119, would you indicate on there where you saw this guy that you described when he tossed this canister?
With the circle?
Sure.
Okay.
This canister, as you're sitting there facing the screen, where did it land near you, if at all?
About 2 rows back.
You heard it?
Oh yeah, I heard it hit the ground. I remember it being over my head and hissing, and then it hit the ground and I heard it clinking, and then roll.
Right away, I mean, are you concerned or are you thinking other thoughts?
Right away I wasn't concerned at all. I just remember a week before we watched Spider-Man, and there was a man in costume there. So I thought it was just going to be another theater prank, festival kind of festive thing going on at the theater. I thought it was a prank.
When did that opinion change?
When I turned around and saw people rushing the rows, screaming and yelling, jumping over seats. And then AJ told me that we needed to go. And he grabbed my hand and, yeah.
Did you go?
I took 2 steps, maybe, and then he hit the ground.
Here's what I want to do. I want to have you come down here with the court's permission and describe for us how you tried to get out of this theater. But before I do that, I want to move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1119 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
Judge, I don't think I'll have an objection to 1119. I'll just need to take a look at it.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll get that. You're okay.
Yes.
Ma'am, can I get that from you? Thank you.
No objection.
All right, without objection, P-TR-1119 is admitted.
With the court's permission, may I have Ms. Cross come down? Would you
Yes.
grab the microphone, ma'am, if there is one up there? Yep, thank you. Is it on?
Yes.
Wait. Yep, you're good. All right, they didn't get to see what you drew on, that 1119. So do us a favor and first start by pointing out the seats that you and AJ picked out for you and your friends that came later?
We picked out 1, 2, 3, and 4.
And for the record, you are indicating 4 seats from the left, but not including the end
Not the
one.
first, yeah, not the first seat.
Right in front of the leftmost railing in the front of the stadium seating section. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. First off, point to where you saw this guy come in through the door with the backlighting and the gun and all that.
I saw him here. Well, it would have been here, now that I know that's the door.
And you've indicated where we have this gray outcropping
Yeah.
thing that's probably for the door. Okay. Where was he when you saw him throw that canister?
He was still there.
And what I want you to do for us, if you would, because you described it, but I can't see it in my head.
Right.
Can you demonstrate for the jurors what you saw?
Yeah. So I see the motion of him pulling something and then doing this backhand toss towards my direction.
And your direction would have been from where the jury is, kind of towards the
Yeah.
clock?
Yeah. Tossing it that way, towards the clock.
And point to where you think you heard it land.
In this row or this row.
Okay.
1 row or 2 rows behind me.
You said that AJ turns to you and says,
He said, "Babe, we have to go," and he grabbed my hand.
you said you took 2 steps. Show us which direction you tried to get out.
Here, we took 2 steps this way, and then he hit the ground and was laying down there,
Laying down with his head towards where?
towards this wall.
Do you know what happened?
I thought he fainted. I thought the gas might have made him faint, got lightheaded, and then
Excuse me, I'm going to interject an objection. 401, 403, calls for speculation.
The objection as to 401 and 403 is overruled. Don't speculate, okay? You can only talk about what you observed, all right? You may proceed.
So he goes down the way you described. And then what did you do when you saw him go down?
I jumped over him and held his head in my arms, in my hands, and that's
Well-
when I realized he was bleeding.
Why did you hold his head? Why would you do that?
I just didn't want him to get hit again if that were the case, because I didn't know what was going on at all. Worst case scenario is protect his head.
And you said that's when you realized what?
I could feel this really hot, thick liquid dripping through my fingers, so I draw the conclusion that it was blood.
How long did you stay there?
Well, it felt like forever. Realistically, maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, and what's going on around you while you're down there holding his head?
Mad chaos. I saw a girl crawling the row behind me, and I just remember screaming and yelling for help to 3 friends that I knew were in the theater that night.
Hang on one second. Did you see 3 friends in the theater earlier that you hadn't described sitting near you?
Yeah. They were sitting further back in the auditorium, although I don't know where specifically they were sitting.
Do you remember their names?
I do.
What?
I called out for Tori Brown Smith.
Judge, I'm going to interject an objection to hearsay.
Go ahead, man.
Tori Brown Smith, Darius Harvey, and Donovan Tate, but I knew Donovan Tate was in Theater 8.
You were just yelling anyway.
Yeah, because I knew he'd be able to help.
Why did you need his help?
Just a big kid.
Did you try to move AJ?
Yeah,
Could you do it?
he was too heavy.
Where'd you try to move him?
Objection, Your Honor. 403, 401.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
I wanted to get him out of the theater, but I couldn't do it alone, so I just called out names of guys I knew were there and hoped that one of them would hear me and help me get his body out of there.
Were you able to move him from where you've indicated he was when he fell down?
I was, as much as I could possibly do it.
Would you tell us where you moved him to?
I moved him onto the steps and leaned him against the wall.
Why'd you lean him against the wall?
Because then that way I knew his body wouldn't just be there, but it would be closer to the exit, at least. And maybe someone could find him later, easily exposed.
Did you ever see anything from him that indicated he was awake or alive?
No, he was completely unresponsive.
What'd you do?
I just propped him against the wall and said everything's going to be okay, and I turned on hands and knees and walked down the last few steps, or crawled, and then crawled, turned the corner, and stood up and took off out the exit door.
So where?
to the lobby and then out into the parking lot.
Why'd you run away?
Because by that point I realized the capacity of the situation was something more than I could handle, and I didn't want to get hurt, so I ran.
Were you scared?
Terrified.
401, 403.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
I've given the jury an instruction as to how to consider information that comes up when I sustain an objection.
All right, you got outside. Where did you go?
Immediately I was looking outside for a cop I knew, and I couldn't find him, so I decided that I was going to run home about 5 blocks away, and then I realized I didn't want to be that girlfriend, so I ran back.
Ran back to where?
I ran back to the parking lot and kept pacing back and forth, unsure of what to do.
And I think we're done with the theater part. With the court's permission, can I have her retake her seat, please?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. You said you ran back to the parking lot.
I did.
Why?
I didn't want to leave him there just in case he came out, so I kept running back and forth, unsure of what to do.
Where did you end up in the parking lot?
I ended up on one side of it, away from his car. It's hard to explain, but I did run into someone there, someone I knew from the high school that I went to, and I used their phone to call my mom.
Without going into any more of the conversations you had with other folks, did people think that you needed medical help?
Yes.
Why?
I didn't know it until it was pointed out to me that I was completely covered in blood. It was on my face, all over my body, my legs, my clothes.
Were you hurt?
No. I had a scratch on my knee at the
Know
most.
where that blood came from?
At the time, no. But now, AJ, laying on the ground with him.
As you're sitting out there in the parking lot, making calls to mom, being looked at, did you ever see AJ come out of that theater?
I didn't. I saw FBI line up against the wall, or the doors, and close them without him coming out.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
You can?
Nothing else, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Is there any cross-examination?
No, I have no questions.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. Mr. Brockler, may this witness be released from her subpoena.
Your Honor, she may thank you.
All right. Any objection?
No objection.
All right. Thank you. All right, members of the jury, it's 5 after 5, so we're going to go ahead and adjourn at this time. Please make sure you follow all my advisements tonight while you're away from the courtroom. I know that you know them by memory, and I know that all of you are following each and every one of them because you realize how extremely important they all are. So, and I thank you for doing that. Get some rest tonight, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at the usual time. Remember, tomorrow we're taking an early lunch break, so eat a light breakfast so that you're hungry earlier than usual, okay? All right, see you tomorrow at 8:15. Thank you. All right, please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect the jury has exited the courtroom. Let me just follow up on one of the objections that I sustained a moment ago. There was a question as to whether the witness was scared, and I have allowed some of those questions in the past. The reason I didn't allow it this time is because the witness said she was already out of the theater at that point, and so I didn't think it had any relevance. at that point. In any event, I think that the jury can infer, given the situation, that the witness and anyone else in that position would have been scared. I have allowed the question when the question has been asked inside the theater, because I think it goes to what steps people took and why, and it goes to what they were thinking as the shooting was occurring, what was going through their mind, and what they were thinking in terms of, what actions they were going to take, and then eventually what actions they ended up taking and why. So I think it has some probative value in that context, but once someone is already out of the theater and has avoided the specific area of the shooting, I don't think it has probative value. So for that reason, I sustain the objection. All right, is there anything we need to talk about at this time on behalf of the prosecution, Mr. Orman?
Can I go to the podium? It's just leaning over here is a little uncomfortable.
Yes?
I called it a podium, Your Honor, I realize.
Yes, you did.
I have a couple of court exhibits I would like to tender. One is it's going to be CTR 33, which are some photographs that I took of the model the other day, Your Honor, after that modification that we had discussed on the record, and I'd like to show these to counsel and tender them to the court. And just so the record's clear, I took these photographs with my phone, which is an Apple iPhone 6 Plus. I did not modify them in any way or edit them or change the colors. I emailed them to my paralegal and asked her to print them out, and that is their origin. That is the same as the other set, and I can't remember the court exhibit number that I had submitted earlier. I took those photographs. I didn't modify them in any way or change the colors, and I just asked my paralegal to print them out, and I provided them to the court. The other, Your Honor, is CC.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
these are the pictures that show the mark removed from one of the seats pursuant to my instructions.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
Go
Your
ahead.
Honor. The second one would be Court Exhibit 34, which is the original disc with the entire contents of the 911 call for Mr. Golditch. Since we're going to submit a shortened one, I think the court should probably, just for the record, have a complete one.
I agree. Thank you.
So I'll show these to counsel, and then if I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not inclined to say anything about the removal of that mark because I think it'll call more attention to it. But if anybody has a request along those lines, I'm happy to entertain it. I think it's best to just leave it alone and hope that the jury didn't notice that mark or that they don't notice the difference. But if someone is concerned that the jury or one of the jurors at some point saw the mark and now is seeing that the mark is gone and that they might be confused by that, I'm happy to provide an explanation if either party wishes. And you don't have to tell me that now. You can think about it if you want, okay? All right. Anything else on behalf of the people at this time?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Anything on behalf of the defense at this time?
No.
All right. Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow morning at the usual time. Thank you. The court will be in recess.